Scarlett Blade. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Silent Night, Memoirs of a Royal Guard, Chapter 25. Night Frost stood at attention in front of my desk. He was the third pony ever to graduate the academy and join Princess Luna's house guard immediately. I felt like we were kindred spirits. So you're saying you prefer the night shift, as in you actually want to stick with it? The blue-coated unicorn nodded. I honestly do, Sergeant. I know most ponies don't, so I thought, why not? He was right, of course. Most ponies preferred to work the first shift, and I hadn't ever had a volunteer otherwise. That won't be a problem, I replied. How are you settling in? Things have been great, Night Frost said cheerfully. This was a huge opportunity, and all of the ponies here have been so nice. Plus, Princess Luna is awesome. He trailed off, and then sheepishly asked, Why? What have you heard? Is there anything I should work on? That made me chuckle a little, and I waved a hoof. Night Frost had been shy around the others, even a little rough in social situations, but certainly no worse than I had been. Nothing like that at all. If you do want to work on something, though, I had an idea. You can manipulate ice, right? He nodded. It could be awfully handy if you had the ability to pull together an ice shield. Something to protect yourself, other ponies, and Princess Luna. Why don't you work on that? I suggested. Quickly he replied, Why not? Yes, Sergeant. Excellent. I'll change the schedule so that you're on nights. I doubt Starry Spur will complain. Night Frost smiled. Thank you. No problem. Dismissed. Runic Vial was standing in my room. That was a first. He had actually taken the time to come over to the palace and check in with me. I heard what happened from Crystal Wishes. I shrugged. Yeah, it isn't exactly a secret. Winterspear was sitting on her bed, reading a fashion magazine. Runic asked, New roommate? Right, these two hadn't met yet. I stood up and reached over to pluck the magazine out of my sister's hooves. Yes, my sister Winterspear. Motioning to Runic, I added, and this is Runic Vial, our cousin. Winterspear shifted and hovered off the bed and over to Runic. They shook hooves and she smiled. Silent Night says you're a true friend. I'm glad to meet you. Likewise, Runic replied. I heard you gave the changelings one heck of a fight, Runic. I saw some of the explosions from the palace, I said. Runic nodded sagely. They were after my rocks. I wouldn't stand for that. What? Winterspear asked curiously, and I just shook my head. What brings you out today, Runic? I'm sorry I haven't been by lately. This whole thing has been somewhat preoccupied. I explained. Bachelor party, Runic said simply. Winterspear's head tilted, and I asked, You're going to a bachelor party? Runic shook his head and slipped a hoof around my shoulders. We are going to your bachelor party. When it comes to romance, I don't know much, but I knew what bachelor party is. My bachelor party? Of course. Now you're a bachelor. I'm a bachelor. Bachelor parties are at the shop. Everything is set up, he explained, letting me go. I shrugged. The party sounded fun. Can Winterspear come too? I asked. Runic looked confused at that. Well, my understanding is it is for bachelors. There may be some mare-looking and the likes. I took a leap of faith and trusted my instincts. It's okay, she likes mares too. Winterspear looked at me, clearly shocked. I had just blown her secret casually. Walking over to Winterspear, Runic eyed her up and down and then nodded. That checks out. Okay, you're a bachelor too then. To the store, he shouted and then charged out. Holding up my hooves, I said he is family and I knew he wouldn't care. I had thought it through. Winterspear loomed over me with a stern face. Then she nosed my cheek. Yep, it's fine, I trust you. Now let's go have a party. He really doesn't do anything halfway, does he? Winterspear whispered to me as we stood inside of Runic's shop. The closed for private function placard was outside of the shop floor was decorated to the extreme. Runic had lined the shelved tops with large potion bottles that seemed to glow the color of the liquid contained within. It really made the shop feel like one of those nightclubs in town. He'd also set out an impressive buffet and some really comfortable pillows. What unnerved me a bit was that he had built a stage on the longest wall of the shop. Where all the shelving and goods had gone, I'll never know. Come in, Runic said as we walked through the door. Welcome, my guests of honor. We made our way over to the pillows and sat down. That is a stage, Winterspear whispered to me. Yep, I replied. There was an explosion of green smoke and Runic appeared on stage with a top hat. I looked to where he had been in beside me and then back up. How the... Fellow bachelors, in honor of our independence, I am pleased to present DJ Pawn 3 and the Ponyville Dancers, Runic announced before leaping down and settling on the remaining pillow. The lights dropped and a mixing table popped on the stage, and a white and blue unicorn started spinning records. I'm not going to lie, it was amazing. Not so much the music, but more just that my cousin could put this together. Midway through the first song, 3 mares appeared on stage in a similar puff of green smoke. They stood in their hind hooves, linked 4 hooves, and started doing some sort of high-kick dance. I sat up straight. The one in the middle was the pink fluffy pony we had met on our trip to Ponyville. For a fluffy pony, well, any pony really, she had great moves. Winterspear's eyes were big. This is unbelievable, she stammered. Welcome to the family, I replied, and put a hoof around both her and Runic. DJ Pawn 3 and Winterspear were chatting over by the punch while she was between sets. The music was just on a simple mix while the dancers were resting. I hugged Runic tightly and said, Seriously, Runic, thank you for this. You'd do the same for me, he said plainly, and I knew he was right. He then pointed a hoof at the dancers and then added, Why don't you go talk to them? You should practice? I scrunched up my nose at the thought of that. I guess so, you don't mind? Runic lightly pushed me in the direction. Nope, I'm going to get some punch anyway. All right, I trailed. Picking up my cup of punch, I downed all that was left. Liquid courage. I'd gladly march into battle to face griffins, dragons, and anything like that. Mares, on the other hoof, were far more dangerous. Pushing off the pillow, I swayed my way over to the 3 dancers. You 3 are extremely talented. I can truly say I've never seen dancing like that. The first dancer, a cream-colored earth pony with a pink mane and tail, cheered. Well, thank you. We don't play Canterlot often, even if this is a small venue. The second dancer, a violet unicorn pony with a mauve mane, snorted. I wouldn't call it a venue. Barry, the first one said hurriedly, be nice to the customer. I need a drink, Barry said, and before wandering off, I'm so sorry. She isn't normally mean. I think she just expected us to be playing a big hall. Puff didn't really explain the job very well, the first dancer said. The pink, fluffy pony replied, Well, you didn't. Softly, I cleared my throat. Well, hopefully my cousin at least took care of you. I'm Silent Night, by the way. You don't have to call me the customer. Oh, how embarrassing. I'm Lighthoof, and this is Flufflepuff. Nice to meet ya. If you don't mind, though, I'd like to get some punch, too, and Berry Shine probably needs a little kick. I nodded. Sure. Lighthoof hurried off, leaving me alone with Flufflepuff. I stared at her before lightly brushing a hoof against the floor. I think I've been to your house before. We were lost, and you gave us directions. Flufflepuff gasped and nodded. Exactly, was my reply. So, you've been a dancer for a while? The pink fluffy pony quickly nodded and went off. She then gestured wildly above her head. My head tilted as I tried to track what she was explaining. With a shrug, I figured this would probably be the easiest conversation with a mare ever. Winterspear and I walked home slowly. It was really late, and I thought flying might be unwise. That was amazing, Winterspear said a little too loudly for the middle of the night. What were you talking to the pink fluffy pony about? I have absolutely no idea, I said honestly. My sister tilted her head. You two talked for almost an hour. I couldn't help it. I laughed. It was good to laugh. I couldn't understand a word she was saying. She didn't actually use words either. I was nodding politely, and she didn't seem to mind at all. She was nice. At least I think she was. Winterspear just shook her head. Look at you, mingling. Are you going to be able to work tomorrow? Tomorrow was going to be rough, but I nodded. I'll manage. When we got back to the barracks, Leftenant Haze was waiting outside our rooms. Sir, I inquired as I approached. Where have you been? He demanded. Out at a private function, I said plainly, falling back into work mode. I was looking for you. I apologize, sir. I was off duty. Sergeant Orchid was on watch, I replied, stating the obvious. He shook his head. I didn't need Sergeant Orchid. I was looking for you, and you weren't here. That is a problem for me. To my right, I felt Winterspear bristle, but I lightly swayed to bump her. She settled down, and I eyed the lieutenant. I'm here now if you need me, sir. If you feel I was somewhat delinquent in my duty, I'm certain the manual has text outlining the situation. Leftenant Haze stomped a hoof. I'll look into that. I needed next week's roster. You didn't submit it. I can't find out which guards are on which shift at the last minute. If command asks, I'll look like a fool. You're sloppy, Sergeant. Making a roster is basic. If you don't think you can handle it, I can't. He went on and on like that for about 10 minutes. Winterspear and I just stood there at attention. When he finally finished, I said, Sir, the roster was posted to the unit board per your instructions in last week's memo. A copy was then posted in both Sergeant Orchid and my offices for backup. Was it not on the board when you looked? I want a copy sent me directly, he said. Then I should assume we should disregard your memo, sir, I asked. The lieutenant scowled at me. No, follow the order as written. Then I'll continue to post the roster on the unit board, sir, I replied. You're not listening. I want a copy sent to me, too. The memo was written does not make such an order, sir. Perhaps you'd like to draft a new memo? I suggested. Leftenant Haze stood there, seething. He hated when I outplayed him on following the rules. He also couldn't do much about it. One thing that every member of the Royal Guard knew is this. New lieutenants are a dime a dozen. The vast majority of them have never served prior. They go to a military academy and come straight into guard as an officer. The good lieutenants are the ones that realize they're placed with sergeants to learn from them. The ones that don't last are the ones that can't get it through their heads that they don't know everything, and that some ponies may just be smarter than they are. I suspect Leftenant Haze wasn't going to last. We stared at each other a while longer. He was waiting for me to flinch. Keep waiting, Chief. I can do this all week, I thought. I also thank Dad for that talent. Finally, he gave up. Draft a new memo tomorrow and bring it to my office. I'll sign it. Dismissed, he said, walking off in a huff. Winterspear and I went to my room and flopped onto our respective beds. He's the biggest pony butt I've ever met, she said. You should have let me kick him. I chuckled. Sergeant Winterspear, I'm surprised at your short-sighted view of this situation. It is much more fun to teach him about the rules and regulations. Besides, if you did that, they'd never approve your transfer and you'd rob yourself from hanging out with Runic and I. My sister pulled the sheets up and said, I'm not sure I approve of this view, devious you. Being a sergeant has opened my eyes to a lot of things, I admitted. I've also got a lot of extra time on my hooves to look over the manuals. It is a totally different job, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. Winterspear turned out the light and said in the darkness, Well, Celestia, help any pony that gets in your way, then. I quietly hoped Celestia wouldn't help the lieutenant. Well then, I hope you guys have had a wunderbar day.